Good morning, good morning, good morning. Luigi, it's
Hey, everybody.
Mario. Hello, hello.
I know 5 of the 6 people. I'm so impressed.
Hey, Mark.
Hi, Wendy. Hi, Maggie. I know
Hi.
Buzz. We hung out in Dallas.
Yeah, that was funny.
Buzz had a great time in Dallas. I
I
know
did.
Luigi. I know.
I have a great time everywhere.
I know
Yeah, that's
Eric
what I was
Bengal
gonna say.
2.0.
Buzz had too much fun at 5 Star.
You never
I was
have too
gonna
much fun.
say. I was gonna say that Buzz has a great time everywhere that he goes.
What happened to your face, Larry?
Halloween's coming up, man. I gotta get ready for my Halloween costume
Oh,
here.
Gotcha.
We take Halloween serious at Los Whitey's over here. That's for sure.
I like Steven's picture. Oh my gosh.
All right, guys, we'll give everybody a couple of minutes to sign on and stuff here. Eric is actually in Italy for a couple of weeks, so I will kind of be hosting here today. We'll be recapping the 5 Star conference, and I know a lot of you guys were actually there, so your feedback will be appreciated on what you guys saw. Where are the opportunities and stuff coming up here in the near future. So we'll get into that. We'll give everybody just a couple more minutes to get signed on and stuff as well, though.
Morning.
Good morning, Kelly Jones.
Good morning.
Few more people signing on here. I looked in the waiting room and I was like, oh shit, Eric Bengal's on here. I forgot I signed on in as Eric Bengal. Interesting. I think Darren Cottrell may be trying to join us here as well. All right, guys. Well, I want to be uber respectful of your time and stuff here. And so I will continue to kind of manage the waiting room as people continue to sign on and stuff here. But obviously, many of you guys, we spent a couple of days together out at the 5 Star conference, which is the most attended REO and default industry conference in the country at this point in time, right? There's some others, NADP and stuff like that, that does provide a lot of great info and detail and stuff as well. But the 5 Star conference just tends to be the biggest or the most attended at this point in time. And, I don't know about for you guys, but for one of the things that I tend to go to, continue to go back each and every year is one for the relationships, right? You actually get to break bread, especially as the attendance is lower than it has been in past years, right? You get to talk to the decision makers and the people that actually have the inventory at this point in time. And from what I'm seeing, there's not a lot of people that are focusing on this default industry, right? The common theme is like, oh, like there's no inventory, right? Like I'm not going to go this year is a pretty common feedback, which is the same reason why I think everybody should be going right now. They should be going because there's less competition. This is your time to stand out amongst the crowd and really put your name in front of the people and the companies that you want to do business with and how you create that competitive advantage at this point in time. So I know that a lot of you guys were we're there at the conference, and I want this to be a pretty active session and stuff here with your guys's feedback specifically. But let's who wants to start us off with, like, well, let's start with just kind of trends and forecasts, right? From the classes and stuff that you guys attended. Like, where do you guys, based on the knowledge that was shared at this 5-Star Institute, what is the information that you guys gathered of future trends and stuff that we should be keeping an eye on right now? This is the interactive part of the mastermind session, right? Like where you guys participate in these conversations, and then that guides myself, and I see Barry Owens and Darren Cottrell to kind of back up and be like, yo, that's a really good place to be focusing on, and this is why. But somebody start us off here with your takeaway of where this industry is going, right? What's happening with this REO and default space, and where some of these opportunities coming from?
For non-opportunities, it sounds like a lot of the big banks are selling off their notes, so they don't have to deal with the foreclosure side, mainly going into hedge funds and whatnot. Which then also the class where they talked about the forbearance, where a person can just, as many times as they want, they get, when their forbearance ends, they can call and say, oh, I can't make a payments, and they give it to them again 8, 9, 10 times.
Yeah,
that's gonna definitely extend out foreclosures.
So really, like, those are two great topics. So let's spend some time on those. But as you're saying, the non-opportunities, I'm seeing that as a gold rush, right? So with that, right, what are the opportunities and stuff that come from that? Because there are some big opportunities. Yeah, it's not going to look the same as it did in the last cycle. I 100% agree. But a lot of us, we're doing just as much business as we did in the last cycle. It's coming from different clients, right? So these hedge funds that you're speaking about, right? Some of American Destiny and Capital's like largest clients are these hedge funds, these note portfolios. I've been on 3 or 4 different calls with a large private equity firm that you guys all know of that is literally bidding on every portfolio that's out right now, right? So there will be just as many opportunities. It will just shift, right? Like, it may not be with the same clients. It's just going to shift at this point in time, right? So an opportunity that I see, how do you get in front of those hedge funds? Because they're looking for people to sell their properties, right? Like they're looking, like they need us just as the banks did at that point in time. And your experience in the default and the volume-based business of listing properties is critical for this right now, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And the shift is towards hedge funds, people that are buying the notes, period. And that's not what we're used to getting in front of. So that's like a whole new game that we have to learn, or I have to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. And another point on that, right? Like, you have clients that are, some of those hedge funds and stuff don't want to go down the foreclosure space, right? So I just helped a client, 28 properties in Charlotte, North Carolina. Instead of foreclosing, they're doing deed in lieu. So it's taking a little bit longer to get through that process, but they're saving a lot of costs and stuff like that and not going through the actual foreclosure process, right? So again, we've learned a lot of lessons through that last cycle, and this is where we will continue to shift, right? Before we get on to forbearance agreements, anybody else have takeaways and stuff when we start talking about this hedge funds or this shift of business and some of the opportunities and stuff that you guys see?
Jump in, Larry. First of all, thanks. I appreciate you helping out with the call and everything. I mean, right now the nature of the business that as we see it is pivot. I mean, that's the word of the last couple of years. You have to continue to look for other avenues and opportunities. The REO side, I mean, we had many conversations, at 5-Star, and in the REO space, the best one being Fannie. And, I think we've talked a little bit about this. That's a job I want one day. I want to come back and work for Fannie, because every time I talk to them, it's like, it's not this year, it's not next year, it's the 2026. And I'm like, okay, so pretty much you're going to do nothing this year, nothing next year, and it's going to start 2026. And that's the same conversation, and Barry can expand upon this because his nuanced and view of it's a little bit more deeper than mine, but it's it's very aggravating to me, because I mean, this is like, it's like, how can you continue to sit on paper that is bad? And honestly, I mean, I look at it as our opportunities is to make neighborhoods and bring neighborhoods back to being neighborhoods, right? We don't want these zombie listings, and we don't want disrepair. We don't want that. And there, there's been a lack of inventory. You hear about it all the time in the press, right? There's not enough housing. Well, there's lots of housing. A lot of properties are sitting there and they're not getting turned over. So, so it's a little frustrating, but again, it just causes you to look for other avenues. The SFR space right now, of course, many of you guys know that we're big into that, with end-to-end, helping us out tremendously on what they do to be able to feed ADR, and get us opportunities on the disposition side. Acquisitions, on the acquisition side, we're starting to see a little bit of bubbling on acquisitions from some of the rest of our clients. So that's another avenue for us to start dipping in and trying to get opportunities for everybody in that space as well. So with that, Barry, I'll pause and see if you had any thoughts on any of that.
Yeah, excuse me. Thanks, Darren. Yeah, projecting anything at this point and when we're going to see anything in the default space is I think ridiculous at this point. I mean, we've been waiting years, and to think that, hey, it's going to be next year is out the window. 26 is out the window. And there's been such a focus, as was mentioned earlier, Luigi brought it up, and there's such a focus now on alternative methodologies, right? The deed and lieu's, which, still ends up coming back into inventory, but really they're trying to do the short sales. They're trying to do the loan mods, these forbearance programs, with not a real high level of success. It's not that, hey, these programs are being really successful and people are getting cured and now they're not in default anymore. That has nothing to do with it. It's government intervention. And it just keeps kicking the can down the road, time after time after time. And we've seen, one of the big servicers recently got sued in a very big, prominent way. And it was because they were viewed by the CFPB that they weren't giving enough options to their clients, to the homeowners. And the reality of it was, we did give them options. They chose one, they went down that path, and they failed. Well, you didn't give them the other ones. So it's to the point of absurdity where they're doing absolutely everything to prevent these loans from going into default and from going into foreclosure. So I think this is not a battle that's going to be over in the next month or 2 months. This is a long-term problem, and I'll say problem for certainly the agents on our call, that we're not going to see this influx of default work. And again, do you want to predict 2026? Okay. Believe it when I see it. But there's so many interactions, and I'll give a good analogy. I was watching one of I think it was on CNBC, but like a 401k, everybody's like, hey, 401ks are great. But there was a counter argument to that was, problem with 401k is you don't know what the tax laws are going to be at the time that you take the money out. So you could end up in a massive tax bracket that you didn't expect when you go to take that money out. And, that unpredictability makes everything volatile, right? And I think, it's the same argument in the mortgage space. We don't know what the government's going to do. Are they going to raise our taxes, or are they going to just stop these foreclosures from happening? And, we're seeing it even trickle into the HECM space right now. Over the last couple of months, they've really said, hey, we want to work with the heirs. We want to work with these people to avoid taking these things back into inventory. So, and that's very much in its infancy stages, but I think that's going to have an impact on us as well overall. But, to Darren's point, we've shifted. We're in the single family rental space. Big. It's our biggest volume. I mean, I've been in the mortgage space for 34 years. I've been in the SFR space for about 3.5, and it far outweighs what we're doing in the mortgage space. It's not even close. It's 9-to-1 at least ratio. So again, we'll go into, Eric Delgado, myself being on several panels over the last 2 years. I've been saying, hey, don't focus on the REO stuff. Don't focus on the default stuff right now. Look for these alternative avenues. And, we've been able to, with like a couple of the different SFR companies that we've been working with, have been able to kind of shift our models. And that's what we keep preaching to our agents.
Yeah, and on that note, right, like when we start getting into that forbearance side of the conversation, Luigi, you're absolutely right, is, somebody just had to pick up the phone and say, man, I'm in a little bit of trouble. Oh, would it help if you didn't make a payment for 6 months? Well, hell yeah, that would help out a lot. Now, here's where the opportunity comes up, because the agents are coming to me and, oh, Larry, it could never happen again, and I hate it. I'm like, oh my gosh, like it could actually happen again, right? When I hear these uneducated agents saying this. But here's what happens. They're saying that it could never happen again because every home has equity. But we've been doing these forbearance agreements since 2020 now. Like it basically started when COVID started running rampant. There was no qualifications or anything. You just had to call your servicer at that point in time. What happens is that money just doesn't disappear. Those payments just don't stop. They start getting tacked onto the backside of that loan over and over and over again. And so let's say you had a $3,000 mortgage payment, which isn't crazy with the average price points and stuff right now, right? Like that's $36,000 to $48,000 in equity just being sucked up every single year. And now these clients are out of options. Right. So the opportunities, focusing on those notice of default lists, et cetera, and reaching out to those clients, like as Darren and Barry said, we don't know when the foreclosures are going to ramp up, right? Like that is an unknown to everybody. But the amount of inventory that you guys have access to right now, today, by working those notice of default lists, and this is where, a lot of us, if you guys have been on some of my mastermind calls and stuff, right? Like not calling and saying, hey, I see you're behind on your payments, right? Like you're going to get hung up on very quickly, but calling with options. Hey, I have buyers looking in your area and there's no inventory. Are you willing to just look and see what an offer would be on that property? Like those are the opportunities that come up. So this is why we jump on these mastermind calls, right? We identify the changes in this marketplace and how do we capitalize on them? Identify, pivot, and change. Identify, pivot, and change over and over and over again. But some very good talking points to kick things off there, Luigi. I appreciate that, sir. What else did you guys come across there at the 5-Star Conference and stuff? What about talks, as we talk about these market standards and stuff like that? Did they talk about rise in foreclosures, REO properties, expectations? What are you guys seeing as far as defaults rates and stuff are concerned? So the interactive part again, guys.
Yeah, so I've been of the mindset over the past 18 months after the COVID mandates were lifted that a lot of people took advantage of the moratoriums and got the forbearances and all that stuff. And I think there's still a lot of paperwork sitting on people's desks at some of these institutions and whatnot that still have yet to be processed. I just don't think that they got to every single person out there that was in distress over the last 3.5+ years. In fact, what was it, earlier this year in New Jersey, when we started looking at the sheriff sale stuff, we were surprised to see that some of the properties from prior to the pandemic were still being processed. So, a lot of people over the years have managed to find ways to, defer and defer and defer. Well, how many times can you defer? At some point, that bank's going to want to take that property at some point, right? So I still think there's a lot of stuff out there. one of the things I do want to throw in there with what Luigi and Darren said is that, here in Jersey, for example, we have the city of Newark had come up with a plan last year called Invest Newark. And what the city of Newark, New Jersey is planning to do and has been doing is they're going after these zombie properties and they're taking them over. And once they put the zombie properties or the distressed property into the Invest Newark program, the stipulation is that if it's put back in the hands of a homeowner, the homeowner does not have the right to list the property down the road and sell it on the open market. The homeowner does not have the ability to do anything with it until they've talked to the city of Newark and its city agencies about what to do with the property should the day come that they can no longer afford to pay for it. So this is becoming a problem because now what they're doing is they're taking properties out of the marketplace. And we all know what that does. That raises the prices, right? It doesn't lower prices. And it makes it harder for people to buy properties in the open marketplace because, we don't have the ability to touch those properties. Those properties come with very high restrictions. You have to be a low-income family. You have to have certain requirements. They're not open to investors. They're not open to the public. It puts a strain on inventory. So, if other municipalities like Newark start to look at that as a potential program, it's going to cause a lot of problems in the marketplace around the country.
And, Barry had kind of touched on this as well. But when we start talking about government and regulatory changes, right, those are beyond our control, but open up a lot of different opportunities because they bring in these changes in the housing policies and the regulations. And every time that happens, it opens up niches, right? So I can tell you that I sit on the board for Jefferson Housing Community. It's a nonprofit in a few different states, and we work with a lot of government entities, right? And we will get houses gifted to us or for the sale of $1, and then we turn around and rehab them and put them into affordable housing. How do you guys get wrapped up, right? Like, if you guys don't talk to your government, if you guys aren't involved in that, like, that's not even an option for you. But again, we want to take this call, identify these, and how do we pivot and change? Like, these are all opportunities and stuff that are out there. And those have been around. Like, I've sat on different nonprofit boards since 2010, looking at these different opportunities at the end of the day. So that's a really good point, Greg, is to kind of piggyback on what Barry had mentioned, is these government and regulatory changes and stuff that are sitting out there. So anybody have any other insights or anything on that when we start talking about the regulatory government changes or the forbearances or anything that we've touched on so far?
I know I see in some of the foreclosures that they start going to the foreclosures, and then the nonprofit steps in and they get the property. It's gone.
Yeah. But you know what? Like, those nonprofits need people to list their homes, right? That is a potential client that you consider an asset manager, right? So we can be like, oh, woe me, like, damn it, that nonprofit took it. Like, I'm going to that nonprofit and rolling out like, oh my gosh, hey, I see you guys just acquired this. Well, look, like, these are all of the things that I've helped, sell thousands of properties for other institutions like yourself, right? Like, that's where we create a competitive advantage based on all of your guys' backgrounds, right? Like, this is what sets you guys apart because you guys have had such a big role in this industry for the past, let's call it 15 to 20 years now. So again, another opportunity there, Luigi. We just got to shift a little bit, my man.
Yeah, just to add to that, I know a couple of guys in Jersey who are investors and agents who got together and started nonprofits here in Jersey, and that's pretty much what they're doing now. Is they're working with places like the city of Newark. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Darren, did you have something?
Yeah, it's a whole nother level, right? But I mean, again, I think it brings us back to the same conversation that you got to continue to look for avenues to get business in the marketplace we're in right now. It's just not It's not the old days where, you know, it was just kind of working its way through a funnel and then the phone call came. It's now that you have to go out. I mean, you know, on the ADR side, we're reaching out, we're building out solutions for small banks, for, you know, credit unions, you know, so they can retain their customers, they can continue to service their customers, but also if they need help with anything to do with the property, we can help them. So, I mean, we've never been down that path before. So, I mean, that just shows you that, you know, we're looking for all different ways to continue to take a bite at this apple, because someone keeps trying to pull it away from us. So there's, and I think, Larry's spot on this. I mean, you just got to continue to pivot. You got to continue to look for opportunities. And unfortunately, they're not your uniform, bland, normal process. It's just a little bit more difficult. A lot more difficult right now, but you got to continue to just keep turning over rocks and until you get lucky. And then next thing you know, things start happening. So and it's just the nature of the business we're in right now.
So,
And
question, are the nonprofits more localized to where you live, or is this like giant firms or hedge funds?
every municipality is different, right? So like, that's just like every bank. I don't think there's a black or white rule for that. That depends on the different regions and stuff like that. But here's what I'll tell you, right? Like, listing the property is a given. This is where, as Darren talks about, and I love what End-to-End and ADR are doing as kind of a partnership, is providing solutions no matter what these different clients need. Because a lot of them, like, in order for them to get these properties, they have to do a lot of rehab work and this and that. I've even had banks this year, right, that have reached out to me and said, hey, Larry, this home is trashed, right? Would you be willing to do, like, we'll do an as-is BPO. Would you be the investor, fund the rehab on this project? You know, when we sell the property, we each get our initial funds back and we split the proceeds. And very quickly, I was like, absolutely, right? Because generally, I was managing the rehab, fronting the costs and stuff like that, just for a 2.5% or 3% commission. So if I can split the proceeds, absolutely. But this is where those nonprofits and stuff will need better contractors and this and this. And maybe that's where you build your relationship, you know, with American Destiny when you reach out, because that's what End-to-End Solutions is doing, is finding those contractors, the locksmiths, the people to rekey, the people to do all of this work, right? Like, this is where we have to think outside of the box, right? How do we provide this solution for the client and whatever that is? And here's the thing, until we start talking to those clients, we don't really know what they need at this point in time. So the more you get to know your clients, the better solutions you'll be able to bring to the table and stuff for them as well.
So I'm curious about, I mean, we can go help these people and stuff, but the biggest thing I get is like, where am I going to move to? I can't, right? I mean, you want to try and keep them in there, but if they can't, it's like, I don't have anywhere to move to.
Yeah.
Barry, you still on? Barry, you still here?
Yeah.
You want to talk about that?
Yeah. So Luigi, it's an interesting point because it was one of the things that we focused on early on in the single family rental space. So with the heavy focus that we had on eviction was, hey, you know, we'll try to find other locations for these people. So, you know, there's a lot of homework and legwork in that. And Luigi, I mean, one of the things that you can do as a local agent is just reach out to a few of the communities, typically the multifamily communities, and check and see if they'll take in somebody that has an eviction or a foreclosure on their record. But it's not that simple either, because so many of these people, I mean, if somebody bought a home in 2020 and they're losing it now, depending on what spectrum of house, you know, what the amount was, their rent is probably going to be bigger than their mortgage payment was. And if their financial situation hasn't changed, that doesn't help them, right? So it is kind of a nasty situation, because look at what rents have done over the last 4 years. You know, you're moving out of a fixed payment on a mortgage that you couldn't afford to go into very probable, a more expensive rental unit than what you were paying on your mortgage that you couldn't afford? It's a tough question. And there's some, smart aleck answers you could give, but I mean, it's a sad situation is the reality of it, but checking with those local, checking with your local housing authorities, seeing what they have, get the HUD list for them. But having kind of a preparation when you go to that meeting, if, as Larry mentioned, hey, go to the NODs and look for the people that are in trouble. Go to them with a list of housing opportunities that they can look into, or even on the single family rental side, is there somebody willing to take them? But no, it's not an easy solution for sure.
And this is where also your local municipalities and stuff like that may have may be able to subsidize rent or may have some different programs. I can tell you for all of these nonprofits, right? Their whole purpose is to create affordable housing, right? So we have a lot of like infill projects and stuff that we're working on with Jefferson Housing Community right now, where they're gifted that, but we have to create affordable housing. So the average price point here in Houston is $343,000, right? We're building 3-4 bedroom homes and stuff like that. And the goal is to keep it under $225,000 for brand new construction, right? So there's going to be more and more projects and stuff like that. And somebody will figure out. And so that's where, again, you identify the problem and then you create the solution, or that's how you can also build relationships with those nonprofits that are acquiring this inventory and stuff as well. If you have knowledge of those programs and stuff, they need people like that. Maybe you're a certified trainer for some of these programs and stuff like that, similar to what we do for HUD, right? Where we teach agents why they should, use the HUD program to buy more properties and stuff like that. Let me pivot real quick, guys. What about what kind of things at the 5-Star conference did you guys pick up on regarding like technology and advancements in technology? What kind of things do you think will be more relevant in the years to come, or that you're already seeing that your clients are requesting now?
I'll jump in on this.
Well, how about somebody that works for you, Darren, that lists homes for you, right? Like,
well, I mean, something came up this week that I don't know. I sometimes I might get in trouble with some of this stuff, but I really try to watch out because I know our concept is, of course, we get paid a referral fee, which of course reduces your guys' revenue. And of course, I understand that. And so we had an agent reach out to us that said, hey, I'm signing up for some of the platforms that you guys work on. And is it worth it for me to sign up? And I think it was like $1,200 or something over a year to get something that had, I guess when you click or when you open up the list of agents, balloons must shoot off and fireworks must go off. And, it gives them a better positioning on the platform. That's what is being sold. I just want everybody to know that I don't want you spending money if you don't have to. And to me, you don't need to do that. On the bid on homes, on the Accelerus, ResNet, you got to pay a big number anyway. So just to be on there. The fact that you guys, if you're on this call, you're on some list, and we know about you already, or you wouldn't have been invited. So I just want to throw that out there because sometimes I used to pay those bills for all that, and of course there's a lot of them. All the platforms and all the marketing and all the social media stuff and your websites, and you add it all up. It's like you're always getting beat down, and I just want to make sure I throw it out there that if that comes up, just ask me, is it worth it? Actually, the agent reached out to me and says, is it worth it? And reached out to Tanya, actually. Tanya forwarded it to me. I'm like, absolutely not. If they're on our list and we're already using them, we've already vetted them out, don't spend the money. Take somebody out to dinner. Take your wife out to dinner, or take your husband out to dinner, whatever. I'd rather you spend it on something like that than do that. So I just want to make sure I threw that out because the technology piece is such a big piece Right now, we continue to pound on our platforms to get them to be more efficient. And that just helps our model and hopefully helps you guys, just so you know, and make them easier to use. But where the rubber meets the road and the costs, you have enough. So I hope that makes sense. So make sure that I put that out there.
Yeah, no, I greatly appreciate that, right? And you know, I see Jason Hooley in the center of my screen here right now. We were having a conversation earlier today about marketing and advertising, right? A lot of clients, and this is where we underpromise, we overdeliver, right? The days of the REO agent, you know, taking all of these pictures sideways and stuff like this on their phone, those days are gone, right? Like, in order for us to get the most exposure to a property, right, make it look nicer, more people to go to that, we have to have a better product out there now, right? So for a lot of us that work with American Destiny, right, it's 3D, it's 2D, it's 3D, it's professional photos, it's drones, right? Which in my eyes, like, should have been done in most of these cases and stuff anyways, right? To make sure that we got the most exposure for these clients at the end of the day. These are all things that are becoming more and more accessible, right? To do 3D like a Matterport or something like that, when it first came out, you used to have to buy a $4,500 camera, right? $4,500. And then you would have to go to the house, you would hit the button and it would go like and spin around, right? It would take time and all of this. Now I just introduced Jason, you know, to a company called Good Carrot that has all of that stuff in place. They now have got to these economies in scale, and literally for 150 to 180 bucks, we can have drone, 3D, 2D, professional photos, etc., all in one thing. So with that technology, our cost also should be coming down as well, and we should be able to provide a higher quality product, right? So when you get these opportunities, make sure that you stand out to your clients to where they're like, damn, Maggie rocked it for us, right? Like, I've never seen that type of advertising and stuff before. And make sure that you highlight that and stuff as well when you do something that, you know, we've used some auction platforms in the past. Those of you guys that were with me at Zome and stuff like that, like when you use that auction platform, man, there would be properties that we would get over 90,000 views online versus a traditional property that got 2,000. Right. So what other technology, like what other things on the technology side of things did you guys see at the conference?
Larry, what was that name of that website? People were asking. Can you say it again?
Oh, Good Carrot. Yeah, and it's carrot with a K. So K-A-R-O-T. Jason, if you have that, yeah, Jason, if you have that, I know I sent it to you today. If you could put that in the chat box, man, that would be great. Yeah, Jason,
Good
I'll put
Carrot
that
with
in
a
there.
K, two R's, K-A-R-R-O-T, it looks like.
Yeah.
That's great to know. And by the way, we bought one of those Matterport cameras back in the day. And we had people, you know, you had to chase the camera, right? You had to stay behind it. And I love the mirror shots, which they didn't have where you always get stuck in the mirror somewhere. So that's all good stuff. And again, back to that point, yeah, I mean, right now, most of the inventory that we're getting is properties that is not a question. Do we tear it down or we keep it? A lot of these properties that we're at least marketing right now in the SFR space are ones that deserve the better photography, deserve the virtual walkthroughs. I mean, honestly, that's one of the things that's come since COVID that I think is a good thing. You know, I don't know about you guys, but you know, there's places my wife and I want to be, and when I can click on something and virtually walk through it, I love it. It definitely helps me being in the space, and I think it definitely helps us drive traffic to our property. So it's been a big plus with the virtual walkthroughs, the professional photography, the drones when they're available. I think they all make a lot of sense. You know, in the marketplace we're in right now.
Anything else stand out to you guys on the technology side of things from the 5-Star Conference? Nothing on that side. I know Darren brought up this topic and stuff as well, right? But potential, you know, the investor interest right now, with the potential for increased inventory of distressed properties. right? A few people had mentioned you start to see a lot of these government entities. I'm seeing them packaging up some of these portfolios and selling them off. We work with a lot of clients that are bidding on those, the HICM portfolios, the NPL portfolios, et cetera, that feed the pipeline somewhere down the road. And so with that, there's more real estate investors that may be entering the market, especially as interest rates start to kind of come down as well. And again, agents like yourself provide a lot of value to investors and stuff of that sort. What are you guys seeing on the investor side of things? Are you guys seeing an increase, a decrease? What's going on in your marketplaces right now?
They want assumable mortgages. That's what they want. All day and night they're texting.
And so let's talk about that. What loans are assumable? Anybody know that?
FHA.
FHA, what else? And VA. Do you guys know, like this is part of my talk track from my REO class that I teach. There's over 20 million assumable loans today. 20 million assumable loans today between a 2.5% and a 4% interest rate. Like, want to add value to your buyers, right? Like, want to attract more buyers into your pipeline, right? Find these opportunities. So the FHA, the VA, right? That's all public data, right? Like the title companies in most states can pull that data and you can target those, again, with similar conversations that you would do for a notice of default or somebody that's behind on, hey, look, I know that you probably have no desire to sell your home. I have people looking in your area and there's no inventory, right? And now you already know that they have an assumable loan, right? Like, so you're going in and you could potentially even get them more than market value, right? If you could help somebody get 1.5%, 2% off of their interest rate, I guarantee you they're willing to pay $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 more, right? Because when you do the math over the grand scheme of 30 years, it's life-changing for those people. Huge opportunity on that side with assumable loans. Thank you for that one, Dave.
Why are we not talking about commercial? I know Darren and Barry and Eric are all going in that direction, right? Or am I dreaming, Darren? What's going on?
No,
This is
I mean,
a
honestly, it's,
mastermind. I've been asking, I've been trying to pull information out of you guys.
You can take us, you can drive this bus wherever you want to go, Wendy. I mean, the topics for today was going to be really just post 5-star. Eric's over in Italy, so Eric Bengal, if you're wondering where he is, and that's why Larry's Eric Bengal right now. But so honestly, wherever you want us to go, let us know, and just it's all good. Commercial, back to your question, everybody, we're continuing to teed up and ready. We haven't seen anything at this point. I mean, I read about it. The people I talk to talk about it, but we haven't seen anything actually turn into opportunities at this point. So
I know.
I don't know.
At the force meeting, BRM did a talk, and they were big time. You guys got to go commercial. You got to start doing commercial. And I guess VRM has commercial, and that's not the only people I've heard say that. The commercial is huge, or it's going to be huge.
Yeah, Louis, we've been hearing that for a long time too, right? I mean, that disaster has been coming for quite a while. I've certainly seen examples. I mean, there was a prominent one in LA, and there have been several. I think there was one recently in Houston where, they were $100 million plus buildings. They sold for like 18 million or, $10 million type thing. So we've seen some catastrophic stories out there, but even with my contacts out there in the, that are in the hedge fund space, we're not hearing a lot of buzz on that yet. I think it's surprising to me because government intervention isn't stopping that. We know why on the residential side, but I don't know what the deal is on the commercial side right now.
Well, just driving around and stuff, you see many empty office buildings.
Yeah.
So, and then, what it used to be is like when a commercial building got in trouble, the bank would actually find one of their investors or somebody with the bank who deposits with them or whatever that actually sell it to them. So a lot of times it never came public.
Yeah.
Darren, I was saying, I wasn't at 5-star, and the last 5-star I went to last year, it was a lot of commercial talk. I'm interested in knowing, was it discussed at 5-star this year?
Well, I'll have to defer. Honestly, I didn't make it to the floor at 5-star. I mean, I made it to the bar a couple times for those who were there, but that was easier because it was in the lobby. But we actually had a great week. We had numerous clients, numerous potential clients, and we were booked solid, and we were just running like crazy. So I never really made it to the floor and even to a session to even hear what the topics are. I know it's the shiny object right now, that people are talking about, and we're talking about Luigi's point last year. I keep looking for it. We've had a couple inquiries from some of our clients, potential clients, that do we handle it? Absolutely. But we haven't seen anything, to Barry's point, that's actually nothing's happened. Nothing's really come to us. And maybe it is all just off the books. Maybe it is that, these transactions are happening where they're not even putting it out there into the public, which again, I could see that happening, but all I can tell you is in my universe, in our universe right now, it just hasn't appeared. It just hasn't happened.
Yeah. And just a side note, I've got a friend client of mine that's got a platform, and they're looking for an appraisal management company in the default, or for the default space, and on the commercial side. And I said, okay, what kind of volume is it? And I said, well, it's really light now, but we expect it to pick up. But again, that's what we've been hearing for the last couple of years. So again, I'm not going to get too excited over it right now. As Luigi said, VRM was talking highly about it, and then people need to get ready for it. I don't think it's a bad idea, but part of the problem with that commercial space is, if anybody remembers back, this is during the crash, so probably 2011, 2012, there was a group, CREOBA, Commercial Real Estate Broker Association, something like that. And they got hot, and there was a ton of people going to those meetings and signing up, and for all the commercial REO that was going to come. It ended up absolutely nothing came out of that. And that I don't know if that group's still around, but back in that day, because it was the same gloom and doom. Hey, this commercial stuff, this is going to be where it's at, and it didn't happen then. And I mean, so far we haven't really seen it happen now either.
And I think one of the things to note on commercial is, with residential, we can see the deeds of trust, the mortgages, etc. A lot of times on the commercial side, it's a lot more private lending when you start getting into those loans. And from what I'm seeing, I can give you two examples. One, yesterday, my wife Ariana got a commercial assignment. An asset manager called, was like, "Hey, can you handle a commercial property?" That was the first time that they've ever reached out. So that was just yesterday. Now, this is one, right, over the hundreds and stuff that she's done over the past couple of years. But two, I'm involved in multiple different syndications. There's a syndication group. They specialize in commercial real estate, commercial brokers. This is through Wells Fargo, where there's a property downtown Minneapolis, right downtown in the Twin Cities there. And the original buyer bought it for $10 million. They put $13 million into it. So it is 85% renovated and stuff over the last 8 years at this point in time. They have now come into default. Wells Fargo, actually, they had been reaching out to Wells Fargo because they knew this buyer was in default. And Wells Fargo has agreed to sell this property to them. I want to say at just over $6 million. Just over $6 million. And so this is where we're coming together as a syndication, taking this down, converting it into kind of a residential co-op working space and stuff like that at this point in time. So it's happening, as Barry said, not necessarily on a mass scale, but one of those deals is a huge deal, right? When you can pick up, something that has almost $25 million invested into it for $6 million, there's a huge spread in that. And you can do a lot more when you have a note for $6 million, versus 24 or $25 million. So again, this is where we have to flip over the rocks. We have to look where those opportunities are. And then once we find those opportunities, now we got to figure out how to capitalize on them. But it's not always black or white, right? It's not just going to always be easy. But as we create these opportunities every single day, we're going to get lucky occasionally, right? And when you do that every single day, you're going to get luckier more and more often. And so those are a few things that I'm seeing on this commercial space as well. Anybody else have anything on that? What's that, Greg?
Yeah, I had, when I was at 5-star, I did ask around about, what's going on in the commercial space, and if there's any penetration through the REO network to get access to those properties. And it didn't seem like anybody really had an answer for an industry that has been publicizing over the past 12 to 18 months that it's knee deep into $6 trillion worth of defaults and climbing. And it's just, I'm not seeing anything. The only access I have to stuff is through the 3 syndications that I'm involved in, with the family office, a private one, and then a public one. And reaching out to the banks. I have connections with some banks that, like PNC and some of the, regional banks to hit them up and say, hey, look, can I get a list of what's out there in the commercial space? And some will give me a list, and some will say, well, I'm working on something, hit me up in the next 3 months and I'll have something for you at that point in time. So it's kind of a cloak and dagger segment of the market, if you ask me.
Beautiful. I appreciate that.
Oh.
Anybody else seeing anything?
Larry,
Go for it, Debbie.
I do have a question. If I've listed commercial properties before back in the day, and commercial is a totally different animal than residential. So, is there going to be any training on the commercial side if we decide we want to go into that realm?
Yes, absolutely, Debbie. Hey, Debbie, it's Darren. Yeah, absolutely. If we start going down that path, we'll definitely pull together something to help out with the process, because it is a different animal.
Yeah, and part of the problem penetrating that market is the CBREs of the world, right? They're so entrenched. Richard Ellis is, they just get the predominance of that stuff. To Larry's earlier comment, it gets snagged up before anybody even knows about it, because the commercial brokerages do have a very strong foothold. And that's what we experienced, what was that, 10, 12 years ago when we were doing Crioba. That was the difficult part. You didn't see anybody from those firms coming into the meetings. They weren't really worried about the penetration there. So it is a little bit of a tougher animal. But to Larry's point, there are going to be some smaller scale ones out there for sure. The strip mall type of scenarios. And, we've seen, Darren and I have seen some oddities, like we'll get a school or, something will come across the desk like, wow, okay. And we'll work on it for a while, but we have definitely not seen any significant volume.
Anything else on commercial?
I have with syndication 2 multifamilies in Dallas, Texas, and I took a trip out there to see the properties during my trip to 5-star. And I spoke to the management company, and they actually gave me tidbit on a couple of multifamilies that are being poorly managed and could be ripe for the picking. So if you have, people like that, management companies that you can talk to, they probably all talk to one another and may know of distressed property. So that's one source to look into, getting a jump on something that might be available. And then the other thing is that, I work with the guys over at Dun & Bradstreet. And one of the things that we do with Dun & Bradstreet is we pull credit ratings on LLCs that are formed to manage multifams. And when we see credit ratings that are down in the dumps, that's usually an indication that ownership is probably either in default or will soon be in default. And then we start making those phone calls.
So I think that, I don't know if anybody is going to create a training on it now, right? Because we saw in this last cycle, there's a lot of, oh, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. It never came. But this is where, when it comes, then we will create the tools and resources and stuff that are needed. Especially with the agents and groups and stuff that we work with, because we want to make sure that we knock it out of the park. So there will be more and more training, but we got to see the opportunities and stuff first, and not create everything for these what if type scenarios. But it's definitely something that you should be looking at, and something that you should be kind of planning ahead for if it's part of your business plan, if it's an area that you want to capitalize on at the end of the day.
Yeah, Larry, on that, it's like, where do you go? And I think that's where the training needs to be, because obviously the space we're in is not where the commercial space is. So what type of people do you hit up? The banks, hedge funds? I don't know. But where do you start putting your name so that you will get it when it comes?
Notify, right? A lot of the portals and stuff ask, are you residential, commercial, like making sure that your guys' profile is correct. This is something I work with Wendy Martin on as we're creating a number of systems, right? Like just filling out your portals and stuff correctly, for one, for people to reach out to you. And you guys are all in, good places and a lot of systems where, just like with Ariana, like you guys may be getting calls and stuff already because you're in that particular area. Ken, I saw that you unmuted. Anything to add on that, my friend?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate like what we kind of started talking about, finding the opportunities. I think if you're taking the approach of, where can I put my name now, so whatever trend is going to happen next, I'll be the one that they call, is, being short-sighted, and you're just kind of sitting around waiting for somebody to give you a listing. Some of the things that we're doing, just track all of the foreclosures in your marketplace, and when they go to sale, a lot of them in our marketplace get sold back to investors, but I can see the ones that go back to the banks and lenders, and you can reach out to them directly and say, hey, 123 Main Street just went to foreclosure sale. If you don't have an agent yet, I've already done a BPO for you. Here's, the BPO. And don't send it to the Fannies and Freddies. They already have networks and, the different, but you can find the smaller credit unions in your marketplace. A big one that we've been reaching out to and having good success with is hard money lenders. So you see that they're foreclosing and they're getting that property back, and then they have to figure out how to dispose of it. And so we have 2 relationships with hard money lenders. They now just reach out to us when they get a property back, or they may call and say, hey, this guy's in trouble. Do you know of somebody who maybe take him out or work with him? So we've established other relationships there. And so I would just say, if you're sitting, on the sidelines waiting to get your name on a list to hopefully get a listing down the road, you're going about it the wrong way. Reverse engineer what's already going to sale in your marketplace, going back to people you can reach out to locally, and start establishing those relationships, and you'll be surprised at how quickly you've got, more business than you know what to do with.
Yeah, it's a huge point on the hard money side. Templeview Capitals, I'm very close with. I helped them assign a lot of properties. The 38 properties in Charlotte, North Carolina 2 weeks ago, from that was from one client in Charlotte, North Carolina. A few weeks before that, we had 5 properties in the Phoenix metro area. The lowest price point was 1.4. It went up to $6 million in Paradise Valley, right? We had an agent close 3 properties over in San Jose on the same street, $3.5 to $4 million a piece. What you will also see with the private money side of things is, most of the time the price points are higher because it costs more to borrow the money, right? Like, so the people have to make sure that they're covering that spread and stuff there. And I think that is a hidden gem. How do you go out and build relationships with those different private money lenders and stuff like that as well? That's a great point, Ken.
Yeah. Hey, guys, I think, along the lines of the commercial stuff. So I've got a really good friend of mine that has a hedge fund. They do a lot, mostly residential, but they had been, that's kind of where I'm getting my intel on the commercial space. He gets some commercial deals. They come through. He gets to bid on a few things, but there's certainly no avalanche of them. But we'll get him invited on this call either next month or the month after. I'll have to check and see what his schedule looks like, and get him to come on and kind of talk more from, you know, a lot of us are just speculating and things we've heard. And like I said, I do have some connections on that side, but we'll kind of get a firsthand view and, you know, talk about the do's and don'ts on that side. And like I said, we'll get that either set up for next month's or the month following call.
Beautiful. Well, that brings us to the top of the hour, guys. Darren, Barry, any closing comments and stuff to the group here?
Well, as all, just from my side, appreciate the efforts, everybody. I know, you know, we've been giving out a lot of inspection work, a lot of the grunt work, but you guys have been knocking it out of the park for us. I know, you know, we've been able to give many of you some listings. So just appreciate the relationship and, you know, the hard work everybody's putting in.
Yeah, I'll just jump on that same sentiment. I mean, we can't do what we do unless you guys do what you do, and you guys honestly continue to make us stand out, and we appreciate that, and we appreciate everything you do every day. And thanks for the opportunity to get a chance just to talk to you guys. I mean, honestly, we look forward to this every month, so appreciate it.
Beautiful. Anybody else have any closing comments?
Yeah, I wasn't invited, so how do I get on the list?
Yeah,
I was wondering how you got in here, Luigi.
Some other agents snuck me in.
Hold on, let me kick Luigi out real quick and we can finish this conversation, guys.
Hey, I wasn't going to say that until the end.
Self-disclosed. Love it.
From a cybersecurity standpoint, I'd be concerned.
Luigi, shoot Eric Bangle an email to make sure that you're on his distribution list and stuff there.
Sure will. Thank you, Larry.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, I'm thrilled that I was able to step in and stuff for Eric while he was out of the country and stuff. He deserves a vacation. That man works his ass off and stuff like that. So if you guys need anything, call, text, or email me. Barry, Darren, all of you guys that attended, thank you guys so much. And we'll talk to you soon, guys. Have a great day.
Thanks, Larry. Appreciate you taking from me. See you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.